Got no time to stop and speak to friends passing by. Got no strength to wipe away the tears from my eye. I don't care what's going on, only know she's gone and the sun don't shine anymore. And I don't feel fine anymore, 'cause she ain't mine anymore. No, I don't feel fine anymore. I ain't got time anymore. Seems to be such sad.
That song just popped into my head the other day when I was thinking about time. It's a band from a band called Glass Bottle back in 1971. They were formed by a PR agency to save the soda pop glass industry from plastics. They did a pretty good job with this song, a one hit, then done. Guess saving the glass didn't work though. But who's got the time anyway, right? From my observations, time has a whole other meaning when we're faced with a significant date and anniversary, whether it's a very solemn one or a celebration. 5 years ago, I watched someone I love pass on. It did actually take a very long time to understand he wasn't here with me anymore. I never say I lost him because I know where he is waiting for me. Because I truly believe that, it does make life easier here to figure out. So every morning I get up early and I have coffee, as we always did. I'm carrying on that tradition. But instead of talking, I write, I listen, I think, and I take this time to make sure I'm still aligned with what needs to be done here. I have thousands of photos of Dave and our life over the years to look at, and I do it every morning. It just sets me right for the day. It doesn't mean I'm living in the past, but I am dipping into it to remember most importantly. And my first thought is always, wow, you loved me through the difficult times and the good ones. No doubt we found our groove in the North, and I know what we accomplished there was giving each other the gift of time. Days that had no plans and were spontaneous, even if it was just an ATV ride into the bush or an afternoon of making soup and homemade bread. Time turned into what we felt during childhood. They were long afternoons, they were enjoyable and timeless. We would fill them with sometimes nothing, sometimes a job to do around the house or the houses, sometimes just a talk or a coffee with a neighbor, sometimes a long walk with the dog to a new place. And it was the kind of life that we both thrived in. We both felt we had a lot of control over our time and we learned to make the most of it. And in 2020, that life was gone when Dave passed. And we had 5 months prior to that to talk about everything, to rehash what we already knew about each other, and to listen and really listen to our hearts. Dave apologized so many times for cutting our time short, and my response was always to say, the length of time doesn't matter. It was the quality of time that we spent together. Really, that was the most important. And I really do believe that. The world was entering into the COVID era, and it was a scary time for everyone. I managed to keep going because I knew it was what Dave wanted me to do: continue to earn a living with CAP, sell the houses, move to Niagara Falls, keep Devon and Ashley in your heart. I did all that. I went back to work and I kept the money coming in. I managed to sell both houses by July 2020 and move to Niagara Falls. And once I got here, I found that life was very, very different. It took me a lot of time to settle in, and I'm still trying. A couple of things that I have learned in the past 5 years have been, well, number one, we all know that everyone approaches grief differently. And from my experience and from what I've read and seen online and in real life here, talking about the person who's no longer here is exactly what a loved one does want. There's so much pleasure in a mention of the person that it far outweighs the quick spasm inside at the realization of what really happened. And it's okay. It's actually better than okay. Tell me you loved him too, please. And number two, there's a ton of coping mechanisms for people in grief. I would try every single one of them and probably did things until, from start to even out. For me, that took years. COVID made grieving very strange because there was so much fear surrounding the virus that the grieving person was just kind of lost in the shuffle with this much more important news. Because Dave and I led the life we did in the North, that prepared me for the COVID lockdowns, and dare I say, I actually enjoyed them. Everything halted. Everyone had time on their hands, and gradually everyone figured out how to get through these long afternoons without their scheduled events. And since then, the events have, ramped back up, and many people have decided they kind of like that more laid back lifestyle. They've become time appreciators too. Number three, and in my pursuit of balance, I've had the low times and the high times. After 5 years, I now allow myself to tip the balance a little bit more towards the high times. I remember someone saying right after Dave passed that he would want me to be happy. And although I verbally agreed with that, it just didn't sit right with me. This was someone who knew him very well, or did they? In our years together, Dave and I, we didn't pursue happiness. Instead, we took the time to communicate, to learn, explore our spirituality, spend as much time outside as possible. And to continue that today means less low times and more high times for me. So even though through all this outside turmoil, I can keep that balance inside. Number four, I don't feel like my grief level has changed over the years, but my relationship with grief definitely has. Maybe I'm just lucky and that I never experienced anger. Sadness, yes. Fear, yes. But never anger. And I listen to others who have gone through something similar. I realize very quickly that I seem to have a bubble over my head, like a cloud filled, warm, loving bubble full of visions of Dave. And I carry that with me always. And as I listen to people talk about world events or talk about politics, I think to myself, wow, I still do think exactly like we did over all those years. And as the 2020 vision unfolds, I have a bit more confidence in expressing some of those thoughts. And the cloud filled Dave bubble is still always there. And more, I feel like I'm aligning with life here because it is actually unfolding just as we thought. And just like in a good chess game, it's important to stay one or two steps ahead. I can look ahead now and see the perils we're going to be faced with, and it won't be easy. But already I'm thinking about the best way to move forward because it is a new world, just as we discussed. For anyone in any stage of grief, I believe in letting our thoughts go where they will, when they will. Find those pockets of tranquility every day, and I think you'll find, like I did, that the sadness turns to hope and the fear turns to love. And even though we'll always keep asking, where'd you go? The sharp edges of grief gradually turn into rounded edges, and they just don't hurt as much. My Dave bubble goes with me everywhere now, and it's just there, and it always will be, keeping me honest and allowing me to find my balance here. So be like Dave, be a time appreciator too.